I'm not drunk, I'm just drinking. I'm not stoned, I'm just thinking about the way that you done me, thinking about what used to be. But I'm not drunk, I'm just drinking. I'm not drunk, I'm just drinking. I'm not stoned, I'm just thinking about your big blue eyes, thinking about your white lies. But I'm not drunk, I'm just drinking. I know it's true that I'm drinking every time.
Well, that was quite the intro there.
Welcome to the State of Everything, folks.
Welcome, folks. That was a wonderful tune there by the great Mac Allen Smith. It's called "I'm Not Drunk."
Came across them today, but I guess that song's been around for quite some time. When was it? What year?
Well, I mean, it says on Spotify 2009. I can't imagine it's that young, if you will. But what a tune!
1974.
What's that?
1974, I think.
Oh yeah, okay. I
Anyway.
guess reissue. But yeah, cool. Here we are.
Yeah, here we are, man. It has been a week. I think last time we were a little bit depressed, or it sounded like a depressing episode. Maybe not. I don't know. That's my general feeling. And do we have more to be depressed about, or not? I think that's the question about today. Or should we just be going insane?
Well, I think we're all experiencing the glitch of the Matrix. I think we're all kind of we're hitting a bumpy part of this galactic journey here in the grid. What's going on with the internet right now? That's what's going on with America. It's like just kind of in and out. You're seeing like an image, but it's like weird, and it's like what is happening. And
you're describing a ripple in space-time.
Yeah, that's it. It's a wormhole, right?
Yeah. That was basically what we just experienced last week, with just the maddening division and argument and misperception and misunderstanding and very heated, fervently held ideas was just some disturbance in space-time. The Matrix, it's a glitch. And what the program is just it's just a big program simulation just glitching right now.
I mean, do you think we are in a simulation? Be honest.
I'm always honest.
It's a good line.
I don't discount it. I mean, is that even an answer? Like, who knows? These are the things that are like, you don't know, and they could be a possibility. And but I don't discount them. I don't think it would change the way I live either way, right? Like it doesn't really change things, because everything seems as real as it can possibly be to us now. And
you might be pre-programmed, like a Westworld kind of situation where you're going through the motions of someone else's Anthony Hopkins's reality, perhaps. I don't know. Or maybe it's the native elder. Maybe he's the one that's the puppeteer. He's controlling us. Maybe it's the MAGA kids. Maybe they're all controlling everything. Who knows anymore? Maybe it's the Hebrew black nationalists.
It's amazing that they didn't get. Why weren't they? How come they just totally missed the radar? Like nobody. It's just such a side note. Our attention span is so short that we get so wrapped up in one story, and yet when like another detail comes out, people have just, we're on to the next thing. I mean, you know, stories don't last more than 3 days, really. Like that kid, like I can't stand seeing his face another another one more time. He did that whole episode or whatever. I mean, people don't even care. Like, why? What was that? The Black Jewish nationalists, like the fact that they started it, or they were doing their own thing, or they were saying like terrible things, but people don't even, like, I don't know. That seems to be important, right?
Well, they're not wearing MAGA hats. If you wear a MAGA hat, that's basically the new white hood, supposedly. I didn't know that. I thought it was just a stupid red hat they sell at the in Washington D.C. everywhere with a couple stupid letters embroidered that a lot of stupid people wear, and a lot of stupid people think it's like the best thing since sliced white Wonder Bread, but it's a stupid hat. And whatever it represents, it doesn't warrant Kathy Griffin tweeting about punching this kid or like finding all her information and posting it online. And
Kathy Griffin, also the one.
People are talking about these kids, they want them to die. Basically, just they're saying, you know what? These kids don't deserve to live because they're looking smug and they're stupid high school kids and they look just dumb and they're wearing these red hats and people don't like it. And there are some people that are just saying, you know what? These kids don't deserve to exist.
That was stupid. And it was an overreaction. Reza Aslan, like,
He can eat
whatever
human
his name
brains
is.
on national television.
Yeah, do you know who I'm talking about, though?
Yeah. I mean, everybody's calling for violence against these kids, and they had to close down the school. Covington Catholic in Kentucky is now closed. They have some lawsuits pending, and basically going back to the Hebrew Black Nationalists, I hope I'm saying their name right, but I mean, even today or yesterday, Representative Ilhan Omar from Minnesota said that, oh, look, these 5 black men were being harassed by these stupid teenagers, basically. What? Look at the video. The video is out there, okay? We can have fake news, we can disagree on whatever, but when you have raw video footage that have these adult males calling these stupid high school kids, you know, like future school shooters, you know, using, you know, cursing them out, you know, using homophobic slurs. Nobody mentioned that. Instead, what happened, I mean, people mentioned it eventually, but the initial reaction was, look how horrible these kids are. This is everything that's wrong with our society. And they're surrounding a native elder. When you look at the video, the native elder, say what you want about the kids, he walked up to them. And it was this incredibly strange moment in American history. And I think Joe Rogan said it really well. He said that it was this kind of weird American Rorschach test where everybody sees something different and we all immediately jump to conclusions and nobody knows the truth or the facts or anything, but it doesn't even matter because Twitter, I'm convinced that Twitter is socially engineering us to be divided and divisive. And it's just, it's emotive. It's a very emotional reaction. You're going to see 280 characters. You're going to respond in 280 characters. It doesn't allow for nuanced debate. It's a very black and white thing. And I think this moment was an incredibly telling moment for where we are in our society, this fractured society where we're going to immediately go to our side, no matter what the truth is, no matter what the facts are. We're not going to even look into the facts. Journalists themselves, big mainstream media, this is, I think, a tipping point for journalism as well, because they simply did not do the research. They simply just went for the emotional clickbait. And they've done it a lot. But this was a telling moment because it resulted in death threats to high school kids. Whatever you want to say about them, that's incredibly wrong. I don't care who they are.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane. It's a sad moment for America. It's so stupid. It was a nothing moment. But it became this huge thing that is everything about our society right now.
Yeah. I will quote the guy I follow on Twitter who's like an ex NSA analyst or something. The guy has just been on point. John Schindler, any 2020 committee, everyone, a lot of people follow him. He just said spies from Russia or anywhere else don't need to create polarizing incidents. America is now an ideological tinderbox. Kremlin needs only to exploit the online mania which we ourselves are creating. It's not a plot. It's our incredibly dysfunctional politics and society. And I just thought that captured it so well, because to me, I found once I found out that this this profile, this Twitter profile or whatever, was account was suspended, it like finally made sense to me, or it was explainable, and like in a weird way, I'm not blaming it on somebody else, but it fits. You and I kind of were going back and forth with this too, which was just, I was surprised at how passionately you and I were like upset about it, or like I was surprised it got me as upset as it did. I think it was like a punch to the gut, where like you first see something, and I still hold this reaction. What I saw, it's inappropriate, no matter how you slice it. What those kids were doing was wrong. They were mocking him, and it was not a respectful encounter. You can't slice it any other way. I mean, those kids were not treating this dude respectfully. Your eyes don't betray that. You see what you see, and these kids are just, it's just a different, this dude is doing his thing, and it's reverential. If you know what it is, for him it's reverential, and that's almost like all that really matters. This dude thinks it's like, why is he doing it? Is there any but maybe they're just not old enough. Maybe they're 14 preteens, so they're not mature at all. But whatever. You just like, you can maybe like age, but whatever. The fact of the matter is, this could have been just a learning experience, a learning moment, I think, for these kids. I mean, it was wrong and everything, but like with it just turned with the speed with which content travels now. They didn't have they got like the spot, and we're just divided as we are. But I think that afterwards, finding out that this account was the first video, or the first place with which the video entered Twitter, was an account supposedly for a teacher based in California but the photo was from like Brazil or somewhere in Latin America. It was weird how the number of like place or just the amount of followers, and I could pull up the article, but it was just suspicious, and they suspended the account. So the fact that this, I think ultimately it was, the person was selling their services as just a content influencer or whatever. So the fact that it was suspended by Twitter, and there's already reactions going on saying that this is no evidence that the Russians did this, or that any other state did it. It is what it is. It could be anybody. There's no way to prove where the country that this Twitter account was operating out of. But it really doesn't matter, because you have all the evidence that you need to know that this message first originated from an account that was meant for whatever purpose to influence public opinion. That was what this person was selling, I think, unless I'm trying to pull the article up right here. But yeah, the account claimed to be a California school teacher. Its profile was not a school teacher, but a blogger based in Brazil.
Fight 20.
Fighting
at Fight 2020.
Yeah, 2020 something.
The device. Yeah. It's meant to rile people up, basically.
So, the high follower count. higher follower count, highly polarized and yet inconsistent political messaging, the unusually high rate of tweets, and the use of someone else's image in the profile picture. So a couple of different suspicious things there. And then Molly McHugh and some other people go on to say this, but it's manipulating public conversation on Twitter. It's manipulating public opinion, and that's when it does what you said when you said Twitter, the algorithms. I don't know if they're necessarily meant to drive us apart. That's kind of what you said. That was kind of like maybe it's inadvertently. I mean, maybe the problem is that it's not sparking any meaningful dialogue. It's too short. It's too. I don't know, man. I didn't engineer this stuff, and like this is why humans are reacting to this and preferring this. But like, the fact of the matter is that it just drove a wedge through us. I mean, that's what that guy said. What I said earlier. It's not. We're a tinderbox. They don't need to plant anything. They don't need to do anything. Anybody. It doesn't need to be Russia. Somebody could have paid this dude, whoever the owner of this account was, to throw, but maybe the video would have gotten out anyway. It probably would have happened, but maybe it would have been slower. It could have gone down in any number of ways. Maybe it would have been the exact same way. And we would have been just as divided, and everything would have played out the same way that it otherwise would have. But either way, that is it's the same sad truth that this country is just like insanely divided. And I think journalism is failing America. I think that maybe that's just the way that news reporting is that you need to report a story super quick and people read about it and then move on and forget. I mean, I don't know. It's crazy.
Well, I have a quote here, if you don't mind if I read it. Quote, you might know this guy, I don't know. Quote, "Journalism is failing America. Americans are happily distracted, jerking off to it when it suits them and wailing about it when it doesn't. The partisan snakes rile everyone up to make their buck. And in the end, it's all a lie. Nothing happens, nothing changes. It's like ritualistic bloodletting, an exercise in self-serving futility. Nothing meaningful results, no real conversation. People end up more divided. The truth remains shrouded in mystery. F everyone and their miserable bitching." I didn't want to use the F word. So that's a guy I follow on Twitter. Matthias Connolly said that. So that's, interesting. But yeah, what I was going to say.
Thank God Twitter only has 140 characters or 240 or whatever.
That wasn't a text message. That wasn't on Twitter.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
I also want to add, this was eerily reminiscent too. I want to say something about how like the framing matters too. This was framed in a very specific way. It was framed for it to look a certain way, right? It was framed like the tweet said, look at these like loser kids surrounding this native guy, all that. So immediately you're going to say, yeah, this is what's happening. When it comes out, there's like a fuller picture. And once again, like they weren't, I'm going to be honest, they were not as disrespectful as they could have been, right? I think that the guy's banging a drum and they're kind of just like going on to the drum. And it's like, yes, they look stupid and they're smug, but there's actually nothing wrong with what they did. They didn't do anything overtly offensive. I mean, the situation was so surreal. I mean, I guess the argument is you can say they're wrong inherently for wearing the hat or for being there for the March for Life, which a lot of people say is an aberrant like way of taking away a woman's right to choose. So that's essentially why they were there, which you can argue that, and that's why people I think had these visceral reactions. But I also want to say about the framing, it reminds me of the Ocasio-Cortez video that popped up. It was it was an account that was like at anonymous 1776, and it posted a video, and it's like, and the framing of it was, look how silly she is or whatever. Like, look at this, like she's so stupid. Like, aha. Like, it was basically trying to make it seem like Republicans had a hard time with watching a congresswoman dancing on a roof 10 years ago. And so it became this thing that was like, oh my God, like Republicans can't handle this girl dancing. And that didn't necessarily happen.
No.
They can't, but the account was deleted. The account was deleted like the next day. It was a nothing account. It was a burner account. It might as well have been. You don't know what the account was. And just like this fight 2020, man, I think these kinds of bot kind of accounts are going to pop up more and more. I don't know what they are. I don't know what their intention is, but it's worrying because it's adding to the divisiveness. Maybe it's a foreign influencer.
Yeah. Well, anonymous, I mean, anonymous 20 or anonymous whatever, that, to me, that signals the anonymous QAnon or whatever, like the fucking insane conspiracy.
Well, anonymous is an organization too. It's like this loosely defined, like, you know, hacker kind of.
Yeah. Maybe that's one way of looking. I immediately interpret it as the QAnon thing, and yeah, with this second, I mean, I think if you're, I mean, what's the goal? To me, it's if these profiles, these Twitter profiles or whatever, are releasing this stuff and trying to, the first one I think was trying to legitimately embarrass AOC. But I don't think it worked. I think it backfired. I think people were just like, this is a non-event. Yeah. But ultimately it was supposed to be, I thought it was just supposed to attack her, or just because inherently she's a provocative person. So they're going to just do anything on her. It doesn't matter. Just do whatever. Like, just do something, try to piss off everyone about her, because everyone probably has an opinion about her, and it'll just be good no matter what. Well, with this other one, I think it was just they struck gold. It doesn't I think that if you're trying, especially if you can make the Democrats look bad, then you divide the opposition. So if you divide the Democrats, this is what's going to be insane about 2020. If you can divide the Democrats so that the opposition is divided amongst themselves and fighting amongst themselves, and Trump can take away the other vote, or just clean up and have a plurality of the votes, then Trump is in power for another 4 years, and God knows what's going. I mean, that's validation. That is just so. Who knows what will happen at that point? Maybe impeachment would come into play. Maybe it wouldn't. Who knows? But just more of this. That, I mean, Trump we almost went crazy over a stupid video, you know, like I hate to say it, but like maybe the technology wasn't there, but like, I think some of it is presidential. We didn't have this stuff when Obama was around. Trump is the most divisive president I think this country has maybe ever had, and it comes from the top. So, you know, God help us, but like the Democrats need to come in line and just come around somebody who's cares about the rule of law and giving everyone an opportunity and inspiring people for something better than what we have. But if the Democrats get sucked into identity politics and any other stupid shit that probably they'll step into. Two things. Let me because I've gone on for a while. But Bernie Sanders better stay the F out, and Tulsi
Gabbard.
What's her name? Yeah, what's her name?
Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, is she the Hawaiian Democrat?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's like loves Assad and was pro Assad and like all that.
Please don't make the mistake of like,
dude,
everything about that, man, because she's actually the only real person running right now.
She legitimately is like would be Trump. Like she would be Trump without all of the bombast in terms of being like slightly weirdly, pro Russian interests potentially. Questionable American interests in terms of like foreign policy and whatever.
I mean,
anyway,
she has no chance because there's no way that the media is gonna. I mean, it's already Kamala Harris is the media wants her, and the media is gonna get what it gets, get what it wants because that's what happens in this country. On the Democrats, you're anointed. If it's your turn, it's your turn. But the thing is, the people aren't gonna go along with that necessarily.
This time, it's going to be it's going to be just a total cluster. Last time it was Hillary, and all around, you got it. It's yours. I think that's why there was like, nobody except for Bernie. Nobody else challenged her. Why would you challenge? Why would you, why would you try? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I wasn't really paying attention to politics back then, or as much. But I don't remember who else challenged. Just Bernie and Hillary. I don't have any idea who else even ran. There were two other people in the primaries.
Lincoln Chafee, that guy. Remember him?
Who the hell is he?
Like a South Dakota guy or something. And then there was the other guy, Martin O'Malley, the guy that you saw with his shirt off and he looked super sexy. That guy.
Yeah, okay. It's like, okay, whoever the hell, there's nobody else. But why would you challenge? Why would you? Yeah, so that last election, why would you even challenge Hillary? And Bernie put up a good run for it, but it was always.
Let's be honest.
It's going to be close here.
It was rigged against him. I mean, I know people don't like to hear that, but it was rigged against him from the start. DNC was explicit.
I think they were definitely, their bias was explicit, but I don't think they did anything meaningful to like change the votes. I mean, it was all, Clinton had more money, but like that wasn't because the DNC was like, we're gonna give you money or anything. It was just
the DNC was connected to like CNN and all this, where immediately from the get-go, before any votes are cast, they already show like the whole electoral college kind of stats. So it looks like Bernie has no chance of winning. That kind of like these little like mind control kind of tactics, they happen the entire like all these mainstream newspapers. They didn't give him a shot until people started paying attention and going.
That's because people's assumptions. I think the entire country looked at Hillary Clinton and was like, obviously she ran in 2008. She was New York Senator 2001 to 2006 or whatever, 2007. Like, she's been around politics. Clinton, it's obvious. That's why people hated her so much. That's why people voted. That's why she couldn't even beat Donald Trump, because everyone knew she was going to run for office. And that's why her emails is like, no, I don't want another 8 years as with the Clintons. My God, I already lived through the 90s. Are you kidding me? That's legitimate. They just didn't like the Clintons back then, but like now it's become a religion. For Bannon, it was a religion, and these other people that he paid to do research and produce the documentary Clinton Cash at the NGO, whatever the whatever family fund, the Mercer's fund. So it was always obvious that she was going to run. It wasn't, that's why she lost, because she had so much baggage that she couldn't even beat Donald Trump. He was a pig. He was a miscreant.
You have to understand, though, once again, that people don't realize this. 2016 was an extraordinary populist election. It was the setting was it was a time of populism. People wanted a populist candidate. The right got theirs against all odds, and the left had theirs as well. That he was being pushed out though by people like, honestly, big money, man, corporate. The corporate Democrats won the nomination. They didn't want a guy like Bernie to be a disruptor. It was a time of disruption, and the right and the left both could have had their disruptor, and it didn't work out that way for a number of reasons. What's going on in 2020 is going to be a fierce anti-Trump campaign that, like, we have to enter. What's up?
No, sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
I lost my train of thought because he sucked. But more than that was, I guess I just want to understand what the Democrats have a lot of people running now, man. There's almost like 10 people. Yeah. And are they going to go towards the intersectionality like Kristen Gillibrand? Are they going to just be big money Democrats like Kamala Harris? Or are they going to be like, anti-Wall Street like Elizabeth Warren? Are they going to be Putin's best friend like Tulsi Gabbard, who honestly is probably my favorite at this early stage?
Oh God, no.
I'm a conspiracy theorist, socialist, I guess. But
she is the last person. She was like insanely anti. God, all right.
I mean, we haven't even started. The campaign hasn't started yet.
Yeah. God, no, that's not even going to get there. But I think that, there's. Look, in a two-party system, both parties can't fail. In 2016, they both failed miserably. The Republicans allowed a demagogic imbecile to divide and conquer their primary. So if they somehow were able to resist, but the thing was, his message was so resonant because he just was attacking the system and saying as transparent as it was, he was using the format, everything to his advantage. The style of communication, the fact that everything's entertainment, the fact that everyone hated the system and the establishment so much, and the impatience of it all. The fact that, they've been told one thing for 30 years, in some ways, even since the 70s, right? Like the 80s, you could go through and channel all the economic curves and everything, but the fact is, it really does come down to income inequality, I think, and the fact that people are just stretched. More and more people are stretched financially. There's a smaller middle class. Everyone takes it for granted because we just hear it all the time. But what else is it? It's people aren't happy with like their financial security. They're financially insecure, and there's not economic opportunity and hope for the future in some cases. So I don't know. There's something's got to change, but they were. So yeah, that's where the Republicans were. They'll and the Democrats were all about Hillary. So I don't know. And yeah, 2020 or 2020, like you said, a lot of Democrats. It's going to be a crowded field. It's probably going to be a brutal primary, and God knows what the general election is going to be. The Republicans already endorsed Donald Trump. The Republicans already have I don't even know if this has ever happened in history before, but a political party endorsing the incumbent.
He's the president. Why wouldn't they endorse him?
Because you have a primary system, and every time you have a primary, you let the people decide who they want to have their nominee of their party. There's plenty of examples where incumbents have had a serious challenger in their party. Ronald Reagan did it in 1976. He came close to unseating Ford. LBJ, Hubert Humphrey gave LBJ for a run for his money, and he had already. Never mind. LBJ had already resigned in 1968. Anyway, my point is that it's insane that the Republican Party. It's so transparent. They're freaking out. They're freaking out about Donald Trump, and for whatever reason, they think that this is going to be the thing that protects or is the best move forward for the party. The Republican Party is so screwed, man. The party of Lincoln has already endorsed Donald Trump. They've already said, we want him, and he's so strong that we're just going to back him, and we like him. I mean, Donald Trump was the guy who was complaining about it being rigged, the whole system being rigged in 2016. Anyway, I can't keep going on and on. It's just...
Well, the thing is, though...
You believe that?
I still think... well, the system's still rigged, whether he's in it or not. I mean, it's rigged...
Yeah, it's just more...
For a number of reasons. But I think that what worries me, though, is... I mean, like I said before, I think he's still a favorite in the 2020 fight. Because I think that the Democrats are very fractured. I think there is this far left insurgency that cares more about like being woke and being a social justice warrior, I think, than like actual policy and actual like working with the other side or working with your own side. I don't know. This is why I'm really excited about the primaries, because it's going to say a lot about what the modern American left has become. Are we going to just have this like this petty, like, oh man, we can't vote for the white male, or is it going to be actually issues based and not only anti-Trump? Like, this is the mistake that Hillary made as well. Like, she was banking on only like this message of anti-Trump without really having a coherent message that people could really vibe with. I'm with her. It was very like, it's the coronation aspect of that. We're not going to have that this time, which is good. But I think that, I worry about the leftist mobs, man. And I think that in this last week, we really saw that too, with people coming after these stupid kids. I think, are we going to act mature? Are we going to think about solutions in a positive way? I just saw Steven Crowder's latest, build the wall. It changed my mind. It was only like a 20-minute clip, but like, it's all so emotional. I know these are just kids too. They're just college students, but they're so like, you're invading my space and I can't, like, I'm feeling, this aggression and you're charging me emotional labor by just being here. It's like he had a permit from the Republican club on campus. Like, if that's what we're going to become, this like hypersensitive, like no solutions, just like you're being a racist, homophobe, like all the isms, or are we going to actually tackle things like in a way that you want for them to be tackled? We'll see what happens, man. I think it's going to be a fascinating test. It's going to be a fascinating look at who we really are, at least who the left is. And, can we have an anti-SJW left? Like, can we actually, are we going to be the keyboard warriors that are trying to like shut down speech and just call people out on Twitter? I mean, I've experienced it myself as like I would say a centrist, but I get called out, and it's like, I can understand how there is this culture on the left that is very like, it's aggressive to the point where it's like, we don't want you to exist. We want you to be deleted. We have to understand that we can't delete people, but we have to be able to converse with them. And if you're going to see a sign, build a wall, change my mind, and then you bring you attend this event with your own sign that says immigrants are great for America or whatever, change my mind. And then the guy comes over to you and says, okay, can I change your mind? And she's like, no, I don't feel comfortable right now. I think you're like a racist or whatever. It's like, but the sign, you literally are inviting him to change your mind, and now he's going to, and you're saying, no, you're offended by his very presence. Well, we can't go anywhere without a dialogue. And I know I'm just giving you an example of a college student that I saw on YouTube yesterday, but the college students are the future, man. This is the next step, and we'll see a lot of this in the next year or two.
So I think that the left has been so just I mean, look, the right's gotten radical, the left's gotten radical too.
They're getting more radical, both sides.
What you just described is just, I mean, but for the Democrat, for the radical left, quote, it's just stupidity. It's like radical stupidity, where yes, there's like this free speech thing that's bizarre and clearly wrong, but like this whole thing about safe spaces that you just said is like just a perfect example of of everything that's wrong. I mean, they're going to lose that every time. What do you mean? You don't want to debate about it? What do you mean you can't have a debate? Like, so that was a perfect example of them looking bad. But also, like, the difference with the left right now is that they aren't having all of their, like, they're not being gratified every day by having their president validate all of their, like right now, the right is having their time in the sun with their president who's acting like a freaking clown and just being an idiot. So, like, they get their release because here's their guy pissing off everyone else or whatever. So when, it's what you're describing is unfortunately the left's way of expressing its anger. The right gets their anger. They get their whatever, they get their hit or whatever by President Trump whenever he is just pissing off everyone else and shutting down the government for 33 days and 4 days or whatever and doing all his things. So the left is getting pissed off too, and it's their release, And it's not, I'm not saying it's like a good thing, but at the same time, like, if the right can go insane and get off on their guy screwing everything up every day, every second of every day, and we all have to watch and listen and follow on Twitter, then, the left, and I'm just trying to explain it from both sides, but the left is gonna react too, and it's not right. Neither of them are right, but nobody, it's just gotten to a point where it's so outrageous. Like, it's so outrageous that people are losing their patience. And I'm afraid to say it, or I'm not afraid to say it. I'm afraid to say that if the right first expressed their anger when they voted in Trump, and that was their release, like, kind of, F you, everyone. Now you're going to listen to us. We have been left behind, and this sucks, and we're going to screw everything up, or maybe get something done if Trump actually does what he wants to do, and whatever. But now the left feels like they have been freed to do whatever they want and piss off everyone else, because Trump is, like, trying to do everything that he, like, came and, this immigration ban and banning transgenders and the military and building a stupid fucking wall and effing up, like, he's starting a trade war with China. The economy is about to go into a recession. So, like, this is their response. People are tired of it, and they have every right to be tired of this clown who's screwing up everything. We just had to pass a bill to say that we want to stay in NATO. Are you freaking kidding me? 20 Republicans voted against that. They can go to hell, all of them, every single one of them. What are you doing?
It's the national.
That's basic national security. That's the greatest alliance that's been. It's the stupidest thing. No respect, no understanding of the world, and no ideas, no planning for our future, no long-term vision of what America wants or needs or should have or plan for or create and shape the world. We're living in the past. We're defined by greed. The only thing Trump has done is passed a tax cut on tax relief for the wealthiest corporations and the wealthiest Americans. I mean, what I said, there's no legislation to meaningfully increase the prosperity of Americans since the Affordable Care Act in 2010. I think that's pretty much true. There's nothing else that's been passed to move the ball in any direction. The only thing that people have tried to do is strip away that bill. So trying to go back in time.
You're missing this point, though, is like, this is what happened with Obama too, where it was just like, let's just block everything this guy does. This is where we're at right now, where people on the right, Trump could do nothing. Like, he could just literally do nothing. But as long as he's not doing what the Democrats are doing, what they think the Democrats will do, they're fine with it. This is why they think he's a success. If people on the right do think he is a success, which a lot of them do, because he's not enacting things like, the shutting down of free speech, taking away people's guns. Like those two amendments are pretty important for people on the right. And what I'm seeing, and this is very scary to me, is both sides, I feel like, are veering further into fascism. I see that on the right. I think there's this like protectionist kind of like, not like an imperialistic kind of fascism, but more of like, basically whatever you think of Trump being a fascist, we all know what that is. But I think the scary thing too, and I've said this before, is on the left too, if the left comes in power, or if left was in power, I mean, we've entered almost like a purge-like society where I feel like I've experienced this here in California, where people on the left want to purge out like old white people, or just white people in general, or people that would vote for Trump, or there's this mentality where it's like they're so deplorable, they're not worthy of being part of the debate. And so now that we're in power, if someone wins the presidency or whatever, what it's just a hypothetical at this point, but it's this idea where both sides, I think we've become so divided that both sides kind of see the other as not even worthy of humanity. I think we saw that in this last week with this viral video too. You are not worthy of humanity because you are wearing this hat. You are not worthy of humanity because you are siding with people that want to shut down free speech, do this and they want to do that, and then you know what I mean. They feel like they're being their freedoms are being trampled upon.
Okay, yeah. So I think that what would be helpful to this discussion is to identify what Donald Trump and MAGA stands for. What do the Republicans stand for right now in America? What are their main policies that they have enacted and that they have done and that they stand for or would like to do in the future? What is going on?
I think it's like a protectionism argument where they want to just not have to deal with the rest of the world.
Who even knows what that, I mean, here's the thing. The government has been shut down for a month, folks, over building a wall on the southern border. Even if they, and this was, they had 2 years. They had 2 years of entire Republican government that controlled all facets of government. And they couldn't, the House, the Senate, the presidency, they could have passed anything. They didn't do it. And now the Democrats come into power. I'm not saying he's trying to do it to mess up with Mueller or anything else, but they do it right at this. I mean, what's the strategy here? This is what we get. This is who we elected, okay? This is who we elected. This guy is a failed businessman who, and I hate to bring it back to Trump. It's always about him, my God. But like,
you have Trump derangement syndrome like the rest of them.
No, but my point.
Beware of TDS, people.
My point is that, while Trump has brought his own effed up, terrible charisma to what has been a core message that has existed in this country since the 1980s. And that is that government is explicitly the problem. Trump has taken it to government is the enemy. And we are like, and all institutions are the rule of law doesn't matter. Everything, the military, we're gonna politicize that. We're gonna shut down government because we don't get because I can't pass this wall idea. All of these things that are just destroying the norms and the structure, the structure of America that keeps everything in order. But the Republican message, so that's what it's been, is the government is the enemy itself. So this is a natural kind of genesis of coming to fruition of a message about and framework of looking at government that started out as a legitimate response to the excess and growth of government since the 1930s that FDR began and that got out of hand arguably in the 1960s, with Watergate. It was untrustworthy and it was just not working. By the time Carter came around, stagflation. All right. So Reagan is trying to stop inflation. And he says, we're going to just pump the brakes with government here, let the bull loose, have Americans and entrepreneurship or whatever. And that was a legitimate thing. You know, there's a lot of arguments that go around, but then the end result was that the economy grew in the 80s, consumption, you know, skyrocketed. America grew. We all know the rest of the story here. But that whole ideology has just morphed into something that is just broken. You know, it's no longer true. He came in to saying, attacking judges, he didn't want to come around for the election. He said that he was going to wait and keep everyone in suspense before he was going to say if he respected, you know. You know, the Clintons and the intelligence community, he attacked all these. You know, the Clintons are basically synonymous with government. You know, what Bill did, everything that happens in between, lies and cheats and all these things. He attacked government. He just harder than anybody else ever had. And because for 30 years, Americans have been primed for this message. They've been told over and over and over again, I'm going to go in. People, this is how insane it is. They run for election against government. We're going to destroy. They fight against government while they're in office. They go out and campaign for re-election to, you know, continue their crusade against government, and repeat, and then they eventually retire and say, here's my pound of government flesh that I've taken, and whoop-de-schmidt. Now my government service has been complete. Government service.
The irony, I think, of all of this is looking forward, like in the next decade or so, I see a very interesting, like, if I had to put my futurist hat on for a second, like, to me, it seems like we're going to need, bear with me here, we're going to need less government intervention in a lot of aspects of our lives. Things are going to become more hyper-technological. You're not going to want the government tweeting at you all the time. If we're going to have more and more of this, like, constant messaging, it's going to drive us crazy if we have the government involved in every aspect of our lives. We're going to need some aspects of libertarian style freedom in some aspects. But the irony is we're going to need that, but we're also, the problems that are ahead of us are going to need drastically more government intervention in order to, you know, have a sustainable future, for example, in order to combat tech companies being the greatest job killers, perhaps, of this century by automating everything. Things like that are going to need, you know, strong governmental influence. And so you're going to have this balance. You're going to have to craft this kind of, perhaps a new third party that tackles this kind of, you know, what do we do when we're confronted with a technological singularity situation while, you know, so we have basic human freedoms as humans, but we also need to transform society completely. Not completely, but we need to tweak things in dramatic ways in order to have a surefire way for us all to exist tomorrow and the day after that and the generation after that. Because the way things are going right now, we talked about this a little bit last week about, you know, the accelerationist argument. Capitalism, consumer culture, if it keeps picking up, we can't actually, like, the world can't kind of have that burden on it. We're going to have to radically rethink how we do a lot of things. And I kind of see it as a sustainability argument. I also see it as an automation argument. To me, those are the two big things that I'm going to try to figure out how we can use government to help us be free agents in the world that are thriving and are healthy.
Yeah, I think that you're definitely right. I mean, there's no question about it. That's something that's important, but I actually think that it's completely doable within, I mean, realistically, third parties the last one was the Republican Party in the 1856, 1860 or whatever. But, you know, I think that whatever the point is to your point, is a new message. And I think that you can sell the idea that let's actually take Reagan's message of entrepreneurship and the language of business that everyone already knows and celebrates, as an American strength, which it is. It's very true. It always has been. You say, let's apply that to government itself. Make government be able to solve problems. And that's Reagan, right? Like government just treat it in a way that it just becomes more just able to test methods for solving problems faster. And that can be on a big scale, but just be able to at least try solutions to problems. And then through a process of study, use numbers, have a test, judge the data, see whether or not things are working, whether solutions are reaching their intended effect. And then if it's not happening, start over and do it again and try something else. Like, what is that? Is that not like, could that not just be the solution to all of our problems if we just have this idea that, well, let's at least try solutions? I mean, come on. What you have to be able to try solution. We can't even. Who gives? Like, I understand abortion. I understand, human rights and respecting sexual preference and religion and all of that. Like, that should be stuff that's like kind of, yes, let's protect these. Pretty much. I mean, is there anything now that like is inhibiting people's way? What is actually inhibiting people's method or ability to kind of advance in life? Like, why? What are the problems? Like, people can marry. The only thing is like abortion. What else are we arguing about? I mean, transgender fighting in the military or whatever. But to me, it's like you got to be able to be passionate about these things. But let's also there has to be like any type of just real dialogue about what's going on and a problem solving, just being able to try solving problems. But I'm going to, in the hopes of changing subjects to give people a break, I'm going to connect this to the article that I talked to you about, in general, tying what I said earlier, the story of the Republican Party from the 80s until now, with the government as the problem, maybe being equivalent to, in some ways, the article that I sent you about how Brexit is, what did I send? What was the name of the title? I forget, but it's basically about how Brexit is not surprising for, it's basically like a repeat of how the end of the British Empire or was just not very orderly. The example is India, and how like this is just the Oxford and Cambridge generation that's screwing it all up all over again. But did you end up reading? Mm-hmm. You end up reading that?
Yep. So let's just we have for our listeners. We'll post a link. It's an opinion article in the New York Times. The malign incompetence of the British ruling class by Pankaj Mishra, the author of Age of Anger: A History of the Present. With Brexit, the Chumocrats who drew borders from India to Ireland are getting a taste of their own medicine.
Yeah, from the failing New York Times. So it's the failing, and make sure you know that. But it's just the paragraphs I like was Britain's rupture with the European Union is proving to be another act of moral dereliction by the country's rulers. The Brexiteers, pursuing a fantasy of imperial-era strength and self-sufficiently, have repeatedly revealed their hubris, mullishness, and ineptitude over the past 2 years. Though originally a Remainer, Prime Minister Theresa May has matched their arrogant obduracy, imposing a patently unworkable timetable of 2 years on Brexit and laying down red lines that undermine negotiations with Brussels and doomed her deal to resoundingly bipartisan rejection this week in Parliament. Such a pattern of egotistic and destructive behavior by the British elite flabbergasts many people today, but it was already manifest 70 years ago in India. So, you know, and he goes on to say, like, when India it was one of the most, the partition, man, was absolutely horrible. How many people died? It's still caught, you know, between Pakistan and India. It's like lasting geopolitical unrest because of this dude who was just like, we're leaving India in 3 months. It's like essentially what was, I mean, just no knowledge of what's going on and any realistic understanding of the world and what's going on with the economy. And I mean, I don't know.
This is an imperialistic argument, though. I mean, you could argue that the Indians had their sovereignty after this, though. They became free.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But do it in a way that makes sense. India, it was the example is of the mistake that they were criticizing is the fact that they left so soon. Mm-hmm. And the person who decided to leave had zero understanding of the realities on the ground of India. And it was just a detachment and you know, I don't know, ineptitude and fantasy. It wasn't real. Their perception of how things would go, their understanding of it, and their laissez-faire kind of like, I mean, you know, what Brexit's going through is nobody's paying. If Brexit was going on and America was not in a freaking mess, it would be insane. I think we would be like, what the hell is going on with Brexit? Oh my God, they're leaving the European Union. That's not a good thing. That's probably what would be in the news all the time. We'd be caring about that. It's a big deal, right? Like,
it's a big deal. So, at the same time, though, I mean, it's so complex. You have to understand that people don't want Brussels to run their country. I get why people don't like the European Union.
Misinformation, though, too, man. Like the same kind of disinformation, misinformation, like shit that went on in our election happened there too. I'm not saying, you know, that it was planted or whatever. People already had their disagreements. They were just, the two sides, just like they are now, were polarized. But people got more divided maybe than they otherwise would have been. And, you know, some of that was actually false information that like people absorbed. And, you know, the fact that like, the false promises that it was going to be a clean exit and everything would be doable. And it's only getting worse.
I know, but you have to think about it this way, though. You got to think about, like, you're thinking about it in this, like, you know, this globalization era way that it totally makes sense, and it makes sense why you have that argument. But if you're an old, you know, maybe not even old, you're just a regular old English chap walking around the streets of London, and you don't recognize it anymore. You're walking around, and 60% of London now is non-English, or not, like, it's the basically minorities have become the majority in London and England. And we can say here from our, you know, liberal elitist point of view that it doesn't matter, that doesn't mean anything. That's how society progresses. But they're looking at it as they've lost a part of their country in a way. If they don't recognize the people, if they don't recognize the culture, if they don't recognize the storefronts, if they don't recognize anything about their country, like, that has nothing to do with, you know, anything about geopolitics. It has everything to do with your neighborhood is not your neighborhood anymore. You can look at the gentrification argument here, where white people come into, you know, heavily minority, you know, cheap real estate, and they're going to just take over the whole block. It happens in Oakland, it happens here in LA, it happens all over the nation. And you can look at that same argument in a reverse way in Europe, where you're just going to have open borders and you're going to let Brussels determine how many migrants you have in your country. You end up with a mass migration situation that cripples your economy in a sense.
Okay. So these are doomsday. This is slippery. You're in slippery slope territory. Doomsday, like, because that none of that. Like, first, nobody is saying open borders. No,
it happened with Angela Merkel in Germany.
Because it was a humanitarian crisis of epic proportions. People were getting gassed. Okay, Germany has a special history and understanding of what it means when there's humanitarian, there's genocide or not genocide, war crimes. I mean, the people were getting gassed or whatever. So they did it, and they allowed people to come into their country. The problem, not. No political party in the United States. The Democrats aren't doing open borders. Most liberal parties or whatever. No sensible.
They are saying abolish.
No realistic.
Abolish. A lot of prominent.
Okay, yeah, that was done. Nobody seriously. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Like you're right. I mean that's an error. That's a strategic error on the part of the liberals saying that let's abolish ICE. Like that's stupid. You just got to work within your means. But the thing is nobody's saying
AOC.
Nobody is saying let's have open borders. The real problem. I mean, it's not all I have to say for Europe is kind of like tough luck. Learn to change your nationality and just. I mean, I'm not saying change your nationality. I'm saying this is what I'm saying. Okay, I'm saying. It's not the people, if you're a different color, they don't recognize their nationality, their communities. If what matters is that if everyone has enough of the pie, so to speak, right? If people have enough money where they're not like worried about their futures and scared about how they're going to make money and just their economic security. If you satisfy people's economic needs, people are good, and they will say. I mean, there is more people will be more tolerant when they are secure.
But it's not
happening. But that's how human nature is. People are more tolerant when they feel safe and secure. So if you give people that security, however it is, but to try at least to give that security to people. In terms of economic, education, and people have got to figure out like how to handle information on the internet and social media. But this whole like, oh my God, my neighborhood doesn't look the same. Is like, the world is changing, and like if you have people jobs. If people have jobs and there is potential, this is my whole point. If people have jobs and they are educated and they have hope for their future and their family and they are secure, then all this will be erased. But I mean, in the meantime, it's hard to get there, but like, I still don't tolerate it. Like, because it's not just to look at somebody inherently, mostly who has a different color skin than you, because that's the first one. That's easier. Mexicans and Trump, when he first said that, shitholes, countries and people in Africa, like, so there is a difference. It's not just, oh, we want to do it. And there's no, that's the thing that people are pissed off about, is that there is kind of this, like, you're different and closed borders and we're a Christian country, Steve King, Iowa, what's wrong with white supremacy? I mean, none of this is new. It's always been there. It's been there coming up from the surface since 2015 when Donald Trump on the main stage said Mexicans are rapists. So, it's an understandable thing. The problem has been there since George Bush tried to pass immigration reform in 2006, I believe, maybe, was whatever. And he got shot down by at that time, the hard right. Rush Limbaugh on radio saying, riling up all these people who are becoming extremists. And since then, there's been no rational debate about it. None whatsoever. No rational debate. None.
No, but this is the thing, though. It becomes an emotional thing. If you get out of your, bubble, and if you picture that you are just a simpleton without an education that's like a blue collar worker in some European country, and it's not even about a racist argument. It's not about a racist point of view. If you every day you go to work, you do your thing, and if somehow your work is threatened by the other, quote unquote, the other, and if you see that crime is spiking up in your neighborhood and most of the criminals happen to be quote unquote the other, if this is happening, I'm saying if it is happening, which it is in some parts of Europe, it is happening in some parts of Europe. If it happens,
in America, I don't know what the stats are in America, but in the United States, crime has been falling since
I know, but we were talking about Europe. I understand that. But I'm saying in Europe, though, I see it as a much different problem. I see America, first of all, as a completely unique situation. We should let everyone in because this is America. We're supposed to be the shining hill. Europe has no prerogative to do that. In Poland and Hungary, real Polish and Hungarian people that are doing their thing, living their day-to-day lives, they have every right to say, you know what, Brussels, we don't give a shit what you say about how we can have open borders, and we just let people in. If they don't want to do that, that's what being a sovereign nation is all about. And so that's the argument that I understand as being, this is why the European Union is a problem to people in those situations, in those countries. I'm not talking about America because I think that we are a unique situation. Europe is different. Poland has no prerogative to take anybody in. They can just say, you know what, screw the whole world. We're going to do our own thing. See you later, European Union. They have every right to do that.
Sure. Everyone has a right. People can shoot themselves in the foot if they want.
That's not shooting themselves in the foot. That's national sovereignty, though. They're saying that we have a certain idea of what our country is going to be like, and Brussels has no right to say that.
Yeah, fine. Go be friends with Russia or go be friends with no one. And then, come on. It's a connected world. We're all working together. It's one global economy. And, if you want to go off on your own and something happens to you, if you want to be part of Europe, I'm not saying like something happens to you as in something, the United States is going to like do anything to Poland, or any other country is probably going to do anything to Poland, because these days, wars thankfully, these kind of like underground, and they're not between interstate conflicts, except with the exception of Russia, taking Crimea. But so, I think that Poland, if Poland wants to go and do that, like what, like, I don't know, like there are benefits that come with being in the European Union, being in the single market, and having, being part of, the Schengen area, if they are, and being able to travel and, a mobile workforce and all the other, like, if your economy, sucks to get bailed out, like, there are benefits to it. There are costs and there are pros and there are cons. And if they want to leave, like, do they really think that is it better? Is that the direction that the world is going in? Look, there's a reason why the European Union founded in the first place was to try to mimic the United States, the power and the size and the economic market of the United States.
Are we working? Is the United States working right now?
We're better. It's still better than, as far as I care, anywhere else. Come on, let's be real. It's better than anywhere else. Though. Like, in terms of what the government can do, what it's trying to do, what it stands for. Right now, it's insane to live here, but the United States, in terms of the adults in the room, the world, is still preferable to China or Russia.
You can only do so much, though, for having, this idea of, one government to cure all and to look after all. A lot, you can only take care of so much. And I think that when you try to take on too much, if you're going to say like, let's circle the globe and hold hands and sing Kumbaya, that sounds good. But small scale governance potentially could work more than large scale looking after a huge swath of people. I think if we had more localized government here where everyone wasn't looking at the United States, federal government and tell you you can or can't smoke weed, you can or can't, marry your best friend who happens to be a guy, right? Like whatever. We shouldn't have to listen to DC for those things. Just like in Europe, you don't have to listen to Brussels to have your own freedoms. Perhaps we need to look at having, the United States federal government is obviously very important and we need it for certain aspects, but maybe we need to transition more to a more localized, like, look, what are people in my community? What do they want? What does Trump have to do with any of that? He doesn't. And this is the same argument that's going on in Europe too. I'm not saying abolish the European Union. I'm not saying abolish the United States. I'm saying screw DC in a lot of instances. I don't care what Jeff Sessions says about pot. We're going to do what we do anyways.
Yeah. Here, I mean, what you're describing is a different, FDR, like back in a different, America used to have a much more communitarian, community-based, local level relationship with politics. Politics was always local, as Tip O'Neill or whoever Ted Kennedy used to say. All politics is local. It's not anymore. People have no relation to their communities anymore, and everyone lives on their own island, increasingly themselves, not even with their families. So, yeah, it's messed up, but I don't at the same time too, there are corporations that have a ton of money, and if they're allowed to throw their weight around against the states willy-nilly, then they're going to win and the states are going to lose every time because they have money and resources, and states are stuck footing the bill. And if you're Illinois, you're $7 billion in debt and there's no hope for you. And you're going to take whatever you can get from corporations because your state is totally mismanaged and your city is corrupt as shit. And they're all... Dude, all right. So I don't know if we need to end this, but I'm going to...
Chicago's messed up, man. You guys got Chirac over there. You guys are way messed up. There's so much wrong with you.
So we've been going for a while. I'm going to begin my send-off because I want to leave with it early enough. But so my parting message is to update everyone on the political situation in Chicago. Edward Burke, or I think it's Edward Burke, alderman since '69 was when he was first in there. He's a chair of the Chicago, the finance, the city finance committee or whatever, is been subpoenaed and charged for using his office for personal gain. In Chicago, we have a thing called wards. Aldermans are in charge of the wards, and we have something called aldermanic privilege, where aldermans have a final veto on any business application or anything in their ward because they're supposed to be the ones who know best their communities. So all aldermen can just veto anything for any reason, their business. So there was a Burger King that was trying to have an addition or just raise it and build another one. And Burke was trying to shake him down and go through his law firm to do whatever. So he was shaking this guy down, and some other alderman was wearing a wire. For 9 months, he was wearing a wire. Every 30 days, they had to reapply to the government to say, we need to get recertified or whatever. We haven't gotten it yet, or we're getting it. It's good. We need more, or whatever. Every 30 days, 9 times, they recertified this dude. That the dude who was wearing a wire had somebody else wearing a wire on him, and he started wearing the wire in 2014. 2014, he was wired, so then they got him, and then so he got flipped over to wire for something. I mean, this guy has been in government since 1969. And there are aldermen right now who watch this on PBS. It's the only channel on TV, cable TV I still watch. Said that people are saying like, oh, they betrayal and R&R turf and whatever. They're talking about Chicago politics, man. And the person, it was so funny because this one of the broadcasters was saying, you know, since I've been a journalist, they've said this is going to be the one that's going to this is going to send the message. This is going to change things. This indictment, this case, this trial is going to be the one to say it. And since I've been a journalist, nothing has changed. It's like, no. Dude, and the election for mayor is in February. And of course, you know, there's like 3 or 4 candidates that are all tied to this guy freaking out because now it's going to screw their mayoral race. Rahm Emanuel is dropped out because of the Laquan McDonald thing, because he covered that up with the Chicago Police Department and then ended up firing that dude. They tried to keep the video away from the public. That's why Rahm Emanuel couldn't run again, because the establishment said that, you know, we can't handle you. You're tarnished. So this is Chicago politics. I'm just as bad in its own separate way as national politics.
I hope we get like a weekly like update on how, you know, messed up Chicago.
We're trying to pay attention. I mean, I try to pay. It's impossible not to. But yeah.
We've had a teacher strike over here. I don't know the whole story yet, but I guess that they got a lot of what they were demanding. So that was a nice thing. It lasted about a week or so. It was a bit long. LAUSD. So go teachers. Education's important. I'm glad you guys are fighting for your rights, and you're fighting for your students. So I respect that. Also, nice Cruz Campo shirt. Just got to point that out. We didn't point out what we're drinking today. I don't know if you had the same little something. I'm doing a little bit of a Boston lager for the old Patriots, because the Rams and the Patriots are playing the Super Bowl. I'm pretty stoked about that. It's going to be great. LA Boston classic, but like the Cruz Campo. So that's old Spain's finest brew. Nice simple lager, you know.
Budweiser of Andalusia is what I always used to say.
Yeah, the peninsula's finest. I don't know. I'll finish. I got a thing to close out on too, if that's okay. I said that I would bring this up last week. It's a quote from Jonathan Haidt, the guy that he's a psychologist that wrote The Coddling of the American Mind. I haven't read it yet, but seen a lot of his YouTube interviews, and he's a brilliant guy. And he was on Joe Rogan, and they were talking about this kind of call-out culture. And I want to bring this up last week. I mean, this is probably, you know, it's probably not a good thing to end on, but it is, because I want to talk about it last week, and then this whole crazy thing with the Twitter, you know, MAGA hack, whatever, native thing happened, and I kind of saw it as pertinent, you know. So he said, quote, "If you have a complex system comprised of people, these people are primarily working to increase their prestige. So once we have our needs for food and things like that are set, we're always interacting in ways to make ourselves look good and to protect ourselves. So we're always doing reputation management. Now, think about what in any group gives you prestige. And so if you look in a group of teenagers, you might have a group like athletics. And so that's how you get prestige. All the kids are going to be working out and training and practicing. That doesn't hurt anybody. That doesn't pose an external cost on anyone else. But you can have some really sick prestige economies. He talks about this indigenous headhunting tribe in the Philippines, where people find people and cut off their heads, not just for fun, but for prestige. So in a lot of societies, you have a lot of male initiation. Boys have to do something to become a man. And if the thing you have to do to become a man is you have to cut off someone's head, that imposes rather a heavy cost on outsiders. This is a sick culture. You can't say, well, that's just the way they do things. This has to stop. And ideally, they would cut off a stranger's head, like they'd find someone from another tribe or a government agency, just cut off his head. But if necessary, if there's a fight with someone in their larger community, that can also get you points. So this is a really sick culture. Now, call-out culture.
Does it actually exist?
Yeah, in the Philippines.
Still exists?
Yeah, I think so. It's like an indigenous tribe there. So now call-out culture is not quite that bad, what we have now. Quote, but it's the same logic. So if you have a group of teenagers or college students who are all struggling for prestige, as we all are, if you get a subculture in which the way you get prestige is by calling someone out, showing that they're racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, Islamophobic, whatever it is, if you can catch them, you get the points. What you're doing here is you're imposing an external cost on others, and that's what makes you so insufferable, because you are playing your game, but I'm paying the cost of your game. People aren't going to break out of that themselves. Once we understand what's happening, I think in a sense, we can all come together and call out culture and say, stop imposing these costs on us. I want to bring that up last week, but I felt like it was extremely pertinent this week because I do think that we're becoming more mob-like. I think Twitter is kind of turning us into like a purge-like society, and I see that this happening, and I'd like it to stop. I don't think it's a healthy thing to just get points on, amongst your Twitter followers or your friends to ruin someone's life because they said something.
Can we all agree, though, that Islamophobia and racism and all these other things are actually bad, though?
They're bad, but everything's nuanced, though, right? Like these, like what do we do?
Yeah, there we go.
Are we going to delete these Black Hebrew Israelites from everything because they use the F word and in homophobic chants? Nobody even said anything about those guys, yet they said that. It's bad, it's wrong, it's horrible, but it's nuanced. If I'm going to quote a rap song right now, does that make me, should I get banned from YouTube by saying that when someone's profiting off that? Because of my skin color, I'm not supposed to say those things.
Yeah, but let's just recognize like what is the actual problem and then what are the extrapolations from it, because there's a difference from what you said with the Black Hebrew people and versus like then like we don't need to like there's a I understand like there's a problem and then what could be a potential implication or like what's a different, are you going to do it for that? But like let's actually just define what's actually the problem with, or what is incorrect language or incorrect behavior or incorrect like view of something that's just unacceptable and intolerable because it's just it disrespects people's fundamental human rights that we've already determined, identified, and defined. Then after that point, both sides just interpret the facts for what they are with nuance, and it's all perfect. In the perfect society, we would do that. But, there also is,
unfortunately,
there also needs to be things that are like that a society can collectively define as repugnant. And
that are protected by the First Amendment.
You can say things.
You can say you're wrong. You can say you're saying the wrong thing and you're a bad person. Of course.
Yeah, but you don't call for people to die. Like you don't say emergency in a fire or fire in a movie theater. You can have freedom of speech, but also and you can't call for people to die and everything. But also like you can call out people for having just terrible views and wrong views, just blatantly incorrect.
They have every right to do that though, to have those.
Yeah, they have every right to, everyone can think whatever the hell they want to think, but like when I call out like and properly identify an action or a behavior that is just wrong, that then you live with the consequences of that, of being publicly shamed for an idea or an action that's actually wrong. Like we may have a president who says certain things are okay, but like that doesn't mean that the rest of the society, agrees with it. And if the majority of people can say that, hating Jews, blowing up Jews in synagogues and running over people at protests and shouting.
Be careful. Be careful, because that algorithm is going to catch that. And you just said that. I'd be very careful what you say.
Whatever.
We're going to get demonetized, deplatformed. We're going to get depersoned.
We don't. Well, good. We don't have any platform, and we don't have any money. So whatever. But that's my point. So case closed. I don't. I don't mean to. I don't want to take. But that was a good. You did have a good point, though. It is. There is something to be said about, tolerance and people's different like cultures and everything. But ultimately, in a diverse country, I just think that there needs to be, for any society to be functional, there needs to be some type of agreement on what's permissible and what's not.
And we'll never get there, because it's America. Everybody has different viewpoints of what it means.
Yeah. Well, maybe we just need to be reasonable people and get back to the Enlightenment and discussion and listening.
Don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole. Rule number 5.
Rule number 1.
Rule number 1.
Don't be a dick or an asshole. Just be a normal, nice human, and respect your elders, respect your people around you, and give someone a hug when they need one. Share a meal, get to know someone. That's what it's all.
No matter what you do, never, ever say goody nine face.
Don't say goody nine face. Oh man, we're screwed. We just said goody nine face. I guess it says my internet connection is unstable. I guess this is when it all falls apart, because we just said that. This has been the state of everything. Closing out, Alex.
Matthias.
Sorry for being a horrible racist, homophobe, asshole, everything. I'm the worst.